Have you ever had that feeling you're listening to someone speaking English and like every single word makes sense on its own, you know? But then like when they're all strung together, you just completely lose the thread.
Oh, yeah, totally. I know exactly what you mean. It's like you're almost there, you're so close to understanding, but the actual meaning just kind of slips away.
It's like trying to crack some kind of secret code, right?
100%. And that's exactly what we're going to try and unlock today.
Exactly. We're going to take a deep dive into why understanding natural English conversations can be so tricky, and more importantly, what you can actually do about it.
Yeah, for sure. And we're going to be doing this deep dive using this book, English Listening Secrets. Understand native speakers easily.
Awesome. So what have you found most interesting about this book?
Well, I think what's really cool about this book is it goes way beyond just like, teaching you lists of vocabulary words.
Yeah.
It actually looks at the way that spoken English really works, like the mechanics of it.
It's like it's not just some theory in a textbook, right?
Yep, exactly. It's really practical advice.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what we're all about here, right? Practical stuff that you can actually use.
Definitely.
So I guess one of the first things that comes to mind is like, have you ever heard someone say something like, "What I want to do?" And you're just like, wait, what?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
What was that?
Yeah.
And it's because they've kind of like mushed all the words together, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's, one of the first big challenges that the book talks about, which is like the speed at which native English speakers actually talk.
Yeah, they talk so fast.
And they connect all the words together. So like what the book calls connected speech. And it's not that people are, trying to speak fast or anything. It's just like the natural rhythm and flow of English.
Right.
One word just kind of runs into the next one. And so the sounds at the beginning and end of words just kind of like blend together.
Yeah, they get all mashed up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, they give the example of what do you want to do, which actually ends up sounding like what do you want to do?
Yeah.
Right. And you would never see that written down like that.
Exactly.
Yeah. And another one I hear all the time is like, I don't know, becomes, I don't know.
Right.
And it's like a completely different word. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like its own word. And
Yeah.
so that's a really good example of how spoken English kind of like prioritizes speed and, making the sounds easy to make
Right.
rather than, being grammatically correct or proper or whatever.
And you see that a lot in English, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah. So connected speech, that's a big one.
Yeah, and then kind of similar to that is that native speakers use a lot of contractions and reductions. Like those shortened forms of words, like
Yeah.
saying gonna instead of going to, or
Right.
instead of want to.
Lemmy, so
And we don't know if we don't know.
Yeah.
And, it seems like a small thing,
Yeah.
but when you hear a bunch of them in a row, and you're not expecting it,
You get thrown off.
it can be really confusing. Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's interesting, too, is sometimes it's hard to know what the full form of the contraction or the reduction is.
Oh, yeah.
Like, if you don't know what gonna means and you hear it,
Right.
you might not realize that it means going to,
Right.
So that can make it hard to understand as well.
For sure. For sure.
And then there's also, like, that there's really informal expressions like slang and idioms.
Right. Right. Exactly. Like the book gives a couple of good examples. Hit the sack to mean go to bed.
Hit the sack, which, if you think about it, literally makes no sense.
No, it doesn't at all.
Yeah.
Or to say break a leg when you mean good luck.
Break a leg.
Yeah.
Like, why would you want someone to break their leg?
Especially if they're a performer or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it can be really tricky, I think, especially for people who are learning English,
Definitely.
to come across these and be like, what are you talking about?
It's not intuitive at all.
It's totally not.
And they're everywhere,
Yeah. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then on top of that, you've got like all the different accents in English.
Oh, yeah.
It's a global language. Like you've got British English, American English, Australian English, and they all sound really different,
Yeah, they do.
And then even within those, you've got like regional dialects.
Oh, yeah. Tons.
So, it's kind of crazy to think about all the different ways that English is spoken around the world.
It's a lot to keep track of.
Yeah, it really is.
And so that's another big challenge.
Yeah. And then I guess the final challenge that the book talks about is like background noise.
Right.
Like when you're in a coffee shop
Mm-hmm.
or on the street.
Or at the party.
Yeah. And there's like music playing and people talking over each other,
Yeah.
And it's just really hard to focus on what one person is saying.
And, people mumble sometimes and they speak at different volumes.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's tough.
Yeah. So those are like some of the big obstacles, that people face when they're trying to understand native English speakers.
But the good news is
Yeah.
that, it's definitely possible to become a really confident listener.
Yeah, and I think that's what's so great about this book is that it actually gives you like practical advice.
Yeah, it gives you concrete things that you can do.
Yeah, so let's talk about some of those.
Okay, so the first thing is about like really being an active listener.
Right.
So not just like passively listening to the sounds.
You have to really engage with it, right?
Exactly. You'd have to be like present,
Yeah.
and thinking about what's being said.
And the book suggests a couple of really cool techniques for that.
Yeah, like trying to predict what the speaker might say next,
Uh-huh.
which gets easier as you kind of get more context. Also
Yeah.
like taking notes on keywords and phrases
Yeah.
and then mentally summarizing what you've heard
Uh-huh.
just kind of to yourself. It can really help you to solidify your understanding.
It makes it stick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, asking yourself questions about the content.
Right.
Like, what's the main point here? How does this connect to what they said before?
It's like you're kind of testing yourself as you go along.
Yeah, exactly. It keeps your brain active and engaged.
Yeah. And I think another really useful tip from the book is to like literally slow things down.
Oh, yeah, that's a great one.
Like nowadays, you can use YouTube or any podcast app
Pretty much anything.
and adjust the playback speed so you can actually like slow down the audio.
Yeah, start slow.
And then as you get better, you can gradually speed it up.
And you can also use transcripts, which is a huge help.
Yeah.
So you can listen and read at the same time.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then there's this technique called shadowing,
Oh, yeah, shadowing's cool.
which is kind of like weird when you first hear about it.
Yeah.
But it's basically like you're listening to the audio and then you're repeating it almost immediately after the speaker.
Like your voice is the shadow.
Yeah, like you're their shadow.
Ex-
And it's not just about like mimicking the sounds.
Right.
It's actually about like internalizing the rhythm and the intonation.
Yeah, like getting a feel for the music of the language.
And then also understanding how words connect together in natural speech.
Yeah, and that's something we talked about before, those reductions and those linking sounds.
Exactly.
Like learning to recognize them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the book gives a couple more examples like, would you like to go? Becomes would ya like to go?
Would ya? Yeah.
You can see the D at the end of would and the Y at the beginning of you kind of blend together to make that J sound.
Yeah, it's so subtle.
Yeah.
But once you hear it,
Yeah.
it's like, oh my gosh, that's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
And then another one is like, I have to go becomes I have to go.
Hafta, yes.
Yeah.
So learning those kinds of patterns can really help you to decode what you're hearing.
Yeah. And then also like exposing yourself to different accents.
Right, because English is spoken all over the world.
Everywhere.
So you're going to encounter a lot of different accents.
Yeah.
So the book recommends, like watching international news or listening to podcasts that have speakers from different countries,
Yeah.
or even just talking to people from different backgrounds.
Yeah.
And that can really help your ear to adjust to all the different ways that English is pronounced.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
And then another big one is like interactive listening.
Oh, yeah, that's crucial.
So it's not just about passively listening.
Right.
It's about like actually being involved in the conversation.
Participating. Yeah.
So things like, language exchange programs or online platforms where you can talk to native speakers.
In real time.
Yeah, in real time.
Yeah.
That's like really good practice.
It is, because you can't just like hit pause and rewind.
Exactly. You have to think on your feet.
And, another tip from the book is to use context clues.
Yeah.
So, like, if you hear a word or a phrase that you don't understand, don't just like freak out and stop listening.
Yeah. Try to like pay attention to the words around it
Right.
and the overall situation and even like the speaker's body language and tone of voice.
If you could see them.
Yeah, if you're talking face to face.
Yeah.
And you can often figure out what they mean just from the context.
Like being a detective.
It is. It's all about those clues.
Yeah.
And then, of course, learning new vocabulary is always going to be important.
Right. Like you can't understand what you don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, reading books and articles, watching TV shows and movies, and keeping a vocabulary journal can really help to build up your vocabulary.
Awesome. And then once you've kind of got a good base, it's
Yeah.
really important to start listening to like real conversations.
Right. So not just like scripted stuff,
All right.
but like, interviews,
Well,
vlogs,
yeah.
live discussions.
Where people are just like talking off the cuff.
Yeah, just natural, unscripted conversation.
Yeah.
And that's where it gets real.
That's where the rubber meets the road. Exactly.
Yeah. And then finally, the book really emphasizes this idea of patience and persistence,
Oh, yeah, that's key.
like learning to understand native English speakers.
It takes time.
It's a journey.
It
And
is.
it's not always going to be easy.
There are going to be ups and
Yeah.
downs,
Yeah.
but it's important to stay motivated and keep practicing.
Yeah. And to celebrate the small wins.
Absolutely. Every little victory counts.
Yeah, I love that. And so in addition to all these like amazing strategies,
Yeah.
the book also recommends a bunch of really cool tools and resources.
It does. It does. Like podcasts and audiobooks are great.
Uh-huh.
They specifically mention The English We Speak from the BBC,
Yeah.
which focuses on common English phrases and slang.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then ESL Pod, which is a little bit slower and more structured.
Right.
So it's good for beginners.
Cool.
And then TED Talks, which are always great.
TED Talks are the best.
You get to hear all sorts of different speakers.
Yeah.
From all over the world.
On all kinds of topics.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then for people who like to learn by watching,
Yeah.
movies and TV shows with subtitles are awesome.
Yeah. You can start with the subtitles on, and then as you get better, you can turn them off.
Yeah. Challenge yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
And then there are also all these language learning apps.
Oh, yeah. Tons of them.
Like Duolingo,
Mm-hmm.
BBC Learning English,
Yep.
LingQ,
Uh-huh.
all great options.
And they all have different strengths and weaknesses,
Yeah.
So it's good to try a few out and see what works best for you.
Yeah, totally. And then, of course, there's YouTube,
Oh, yeah. YouTube's a gold mine.
which has like 1 million channels dedicated to learning English.
There's so much good stuff out there.
They recommend BBC Learning English again.
Yep, they're great.
English Addict with Mr. Steve.
Yeah, he's fun.
He's hilarious.
Yeah.
And then Speak English with Vanessa.
Yeah, Vanessa's great. She's got a lot of practical tips.
Awesome. And then for those interactive listening opportunity.
Yeah.
Online language exchange programs are amazing.
They are like Tandem, Hello Talk, italki.
Yeah.
All good options.
So yeah, there you have it.
Mhm.
Like understanding native English speakers might seem like a huge challenge, right?
It can be daunting,
Yeah.
but it is absolutely achievable
Yeah.
if you use the right techniques and you put in the effort.
And you have fun with it.
Exactly.
Like it shouldn't feel like a chore.
Yeah,
It should be something that you enjoy.
right. And the more you enjoy it, the more you'll learn.
Exactly.
So yeah, if you really immerse yourself in spoken English and get used to all the different sounds and rhythms and nuances,
Yeah.
you'll definitely be able to understand native speakers much more easily.
Yeah, and I think on that note,
Yeah.
it's important to remember that like engaging with spoken English
Uh-huh.
isn't just about improving your language skills.
Right.
It's about like connecting with people from all over the world.
Yeah, it's about understanding different cultures.
Yeah, and broadening your horizons.
So the real secret to understanding native English speakers
Mm-hmm.
might just be to stay curious.
And to really want to connect with other people.
Exactly, because at the end of the day, language is all about communication
Yeah,
and connection.
absolutely.
So get out there and start talking to people.
Yeah, go have fun
Have fun.
and explore the world of English.
The world is your oyster,
It is.
so go for it.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive.
Always my pleasure.
It was really fun.
Yeah, it was great.
I hope our listeners learned a lot.
I hope so too.
And we'll see you next time.
See you later.
Bye.